to hear about the time that the Road Warriors worked as double glazing salesmen? They didn't sell anything then either. Wrestling news. 2 AEW stars were possibly injured last night on Dynamite. Is Vince McMahon buying back the XFL? We'll talk about that in a sec. And find out later why the Undertaker's entrance is sometimes longer than others. You won't believe it when I tell you. AEW Dub or Nothing this Saturday. A few people have taken exception to me using the flip of a coin to determine my predictions. Heads I care, tails I don't. Aha! But there could possibly be a little bit of a malfunction when we get to AEW's pay-per-view on Saturday, because potentially 2 stars from said show have been injured at Dynamite. Let's talk about Dr. Brit Baker first of all, in a tag match teaming with Nyla Rose. During the match, Nyla Rose gets dumped onto Dr. Brit Baker, and you can see that she lands quite awkwardly on Baker's knee. Baker continues on with the match for a little while longer before tagging out to Nyla Rose, but you can see that she's favouring that knee. Outside the ring, she's checked on by medical staff, and she's helped to the back as well. So you can see that there's, I mean, this could all just be incredible working. It could absolutely be that. But it was the immediacy of suddenly going for the knee after she got Nyla Rose thrown at her, which made me think that maybe there's something a little bit skew-if about that. So we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, we're hoping Dr. Brit Baker is in good form for Saturday, where she's going to be facing off against Chris Statlander. The other concern is Phoenix. Phoenix had a match with Orange Cassidy last night that I really loved. And it was during that match that Phoenix did a senton to the outside of the ring and basically landed tailbone first on the ground. It looked ugly. I genuinely don't know whether this was something that knocked Phoenix Bandy or not. I don't know, but the way he landed was quite uncomfortable. Obviously, we'll have an update on these guys as and when we get it here at Cultaholic. And Jack is along later on today for all the grades for AEW Dynamite. Ross is here as well with AEW TF moments too. Is Vince McMahon buying back the XFL? One report from The Athletic seems to think that could be the case. This comes from Daniel Kaplan of The Athletic, who writes this report suggesting that XFL creditors seem to believe that McMahon is looking to buy the league out of bankruptcy. So, of course, just a few months ago we reported that was the XFL, and it was all done just about 10 minutes into its run, and it now looks as if Vince McMahon could be going to go for it again. This report is sort of corroborated by the fact that former XFL president Jeffrey Pollock, the current XFL president Jeffrey Pollock, is he current? I don't know. Either way, XFL president Jeffrey Pollock has contacted stadiums in Seattle about reinstating the league's lease agreements. So potentially looking to get back in with some of these stadiums. Now, the XFL owes more than $14 million to its 25 largest unsecured creditors. And there is obviously a lot of other stuff going on within the aftermath of the XFL, including a lawsuit from the former commissioner of XFL, Oliver Luck, for wrongful termination. So there's quite a few other things going on there. And also, if Vince McMahon was indeed to buy the XFL, buy basically everything back from the XFL and run it again, he'd be starting all over again from day dot, like rebuilding relationships and coaches and teams and all of this. But the main reason that Vince McMahon, the reason Vince McMahon basically folded the XFL only to buy it back is to keep in good with people who bought season tickets. Because of the way it's all fallen, it means that people who bought season tickets will get money back, so consequently maybe they'll pay for more season tickets if it comes back in a couple of years' time. We will see. I'm sure Vince McMahon wouldn't give up on the XFL without a fight. We send our best to Stardom's Arisa Hoshiki, who yesterday announced her retirement from professional wrestling at the age of just 24 years old. She was the reigning Wonder of Stardom champion. That belt has been returned to Stardom now. She only started with Stardom back at the start of the early teens. I think it was like 2011, I think it was, when she started with them. She took a break to go and pursue a career in music and boxing. Came back in 2018. She won the Cinderella tournament. She's had a phenomenal run as the Wonder of Stardom champion, but when she was conspicuous by her absence from the show at Korakuen Hall a short while back, there was some questions about her well-being. She's put a lot of that to rest on Stardom's English Twitter account. She says, "I was absent from the Korakuen Hall show on March the 8th due to head and neck issues. After discussions with doctors and Mr. Ogawa, I've decided that I will retire. I've not been well for about a year, but I was able to continue because I enjoyed doing professional wrestling and my feelings helped keep me going. At present, my neck has improved, but my head is still in bad condition. I wanted to tell the fans in the ring, but we have this current world situation. I'm really sorry that the announcement was made while Stardom shows aren't happening. In the future, I will continue to do work that I love while watching my physical and mental conditions. It was a short time that I came back to wrestling, but I would like to thank you all for your support." From Arisa Hoshiki. Devastated. She genuinely was one of those people that just grasped wrestling with both hands at such a young age. Could have been one of those Stardom players that transcends the promotion as well, but that's clearly not the case now. Sending nothing but the best to Arisa Hoshiki. We talk a lot about ratings for Raw and NXT and how there's a bit of a down sweep for Monday Night Raw, but in terms of wrestling, there is still a desire to watch wrestling stuff, as Dark Side of the Ring closed out its season with the highest rated episode ever and the highest rated show in the history of Vice TV. The Last Days of Owen Hart averaged 349,000 viewers on Vice TV. This is a massive number. Beforehand, the highest rated show on Vice TV was the premiere episode of Dark Side of the Ring Season 2, which was the Chris Benoit episode. And this has blown that out of the water. I would say, if you haven't made time to watch it yet, just be prepared. It's a rough watch. It's a rough watch. It really is. And if you want to support the Owen Hart Foundation in any way, ProWrestlingTees.com have just launched an Owen Hart commemorative t-shirt with money going to the Owen Hart Foundation from them. You can find it at ProWrestlingTees.com. Impact Wrestling news now, and they've decided to dip into their archives, which makes sense since the world has stopped. And boy, do they have archives. So Axis TV have announced a brand new show called Impact in 60 that will air after Impact Wrestling on a Tuesday night. So it gives them a nice 3-hour block of wrestling. Impact in 60 is going to be all about the 18-year history of TNA, NWA TNA, Global Force for a cup of coffee, Impact Wrestling, and they're going to be chronicling it in different themed episodes. The first episode is called The Asylum Years, which is all about the first couple of years of NWA TNA when it was a weekly pay-per-view. You're going to see guys like AJ Styles in there, Raven, Jeff Jarrett, Cheeks maybe might get a mention. Oh, you've never heard of Cheeks? If you feel like it, look up Cheeks with an X. I'm going to leave that with you. I doubt he'll make the cut. But then they're going to do episodes on the X Division, the history of the World Championship. There's an episode planned on Aces and Eights. There's an episode planned on Mick Foley's time in there. You forget that TNA / Impact Wrestling / whatever have an amazing history. They're the company that just kept on companying. And I'm really chuffed to see that they are leaning into this a little bit more outside of just Impact Plus, which is their on-demand network. It's great to see them actually putting more stuff out there. The Undertaker is doing the rounds, promoting his docu-series Bouncing Back. It's so weird to see I know that's not what it's called, by the way. It's so weird to see the Undertaker just talking like a normal person on interviews and podcasts and stuff like that. He was on Pardon My Take, talking about the docu-series, and he was talking about his entrance, and he let us into a little insight into his entrance. and you know, they're normally sort of short rock operas at best, his entrances, and they're normally incredibly long. I reckon you could probably go and make several rounds of drinks while the Undertaker's walking to the ring sometimes. But there's a reason for this, and he explains it on Part of My Take. The Undertaker says, a lot of times the entrance would just depend on my opponent. If I was working with somebody that was pretty limited, or I thought I was going to have just a real match, I was like, man, I'm going to get my money's worth out of this entrance. There were times I would take a little bit of extra time because I knew the match is going to be horrible. I figured I might as well give it to them on the entrance because they're going to be disappointed once the bell rings. I kind of want to now spend some time going through the WWE network, just timing the Undertaker's entrances to see who he liked working with and who he didn't. I'm sure we could get like a flow diagram that shows it. I'm sure we can. Want to end the podcast today remembering Shad Gaspard. The news came down yesterday that Shad Gaspard has passed away. It was on Sunday where he was reported missing after he and his son got caught in the water on Venice Beach. We know that Shad asked the Coast Guard to save his son. By the time they came to save Shad, he'd been swept underwater and he wasn't seen since. A body has been identified now, and it's just the most devastating news. Shad Gaspard, who was born in Brooklyn, by the age of 16, was trained as a boxer. He had a massive martial arts background by that age as well. He was working as a prize fighter, being promoted by WCW's Hardbody Harrison. That was a thing that happened. He tried out for Tough Enough in 2002, but failed the medical. But there was clearly a lot of people who saw all the potential in Shad Gaspard. Two in particular were Sergeant Dwayne Bruce, former head of the WCW Power Plant, and Tom Pritchard, who works for OVW at the time. And we saw Shad make his debut as Da Beast in OVW, where he was paired with the Neighborhoodie, who went on to become JTG, and together they went on to become Crime Time in WWE. Kind of thought that when Crime Time broke up in 2010, this was going to be the start of a big solo run for Shad, but it wasn't to be, as he was released along with several other people in a sort of end-of-year clear-out by WWE. He would reunite with JTG on the Indies. They would do stuff with Crime Time whilst working smaller shows. But one thing that Shad is remembered for the most happened outside of the wrestling ring when he stopped an armed robbery of a gas station in Florida. The story of how Shad Gaspard ran towards the guy with a gun with the mindset of, I don't want him to hurt any other people, just shows you the sort of caliber of guy that Shad Gaspard really is. He is survived by his beautiful wife and family, and some tributes pouring in just show how well liked this guy really was. In fact, I want to give this a mention because I think this is a really lovely idea. Collar and Elbow produced a Shad Gaspard t-shirt. All the proceeds from the shirt are going to go directly to Shad's family. You can go to Collar X Elbow on Twitter to find out all the details about that. We here at Cultaholic send nothing but love to the family of Shad Gaspard.